All right, we all know about warranty nightmares. Automotive Warranty Network Incorporated. If your warranty process still involves sticky notes, tribal knowledge, and late night claims rejections, you're leaving money on the table. Automotive Warranty Network Incorporated brings clarity, compliance, and cash flow to your warranty game. They speak fluent OEM, and they've got your back. Hey, I want to encourage you to take a visit over to our partner, Target Automotive, at target.com. That is great until you're drowning in it. Target turns that chaos into clarity with dashboards that actually make sense. Fixed ops leaders finally get what they need: real-time, drill-down insights without the spreadsheet migraines. It's not just business intelligence, it's Target. Let's talk parts. Yeah, that corner of the dealership most people don't look at until there's a fire. Parts Edge helps you clean up that mess. Smarter inventory, better margins, and no more guessing games. It's like giving your parts manager a crystal ball, except this one actually works. Spiffy. You can manage your mobile appointments, optimize your service routes, track inventory, and process payments, all with Spiffy, and you can learn more at spiffy.com. You ever wish you could inspect every car like a tech with X-ray vision? UVI is like an MRI for your car. UVI doesn't miss a thing. Scans the tires, the underbody, body panels, and wheels for scuffs in seconds, giving your team instant, actionable intel without slowing down the lane. That's not the future. That's UVI, and it's live in stores today.
Well, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for being here today. My name's Stephanie Wedgeworth, if you can't read the screen. I'm happy that you guys have joined us today because we have a very special day, very special guest. And I first want to thank our sponsor, IntelliCheck, for making this possible for us to grab some time on our calendars and get on this virtual call and share and support and mentor each other. And I'm just really excited that I have Jessica Smith with us today. She is a busy, busy woman. She is the CEO and founder of Grit and Grace Company, vice president of WOCAN, Women of Color Automotive Network, and the voice behind the Lead Like a Girl podcast. You are amazing. With nearly 30 years of experience across entrepreneurship, corporate leadership, Jessica has led national teams, built thriving businesses, and mentored women into impactful leadership roles. Her journey from teen mother to Fortune 500 director is a powerful story of resilience, grit, and grace, and I am honored to know her and call her a friend. Today, we are going to be talking about Jessica's journey, how she's been navigating this slow job market after experiencing job loss twice in her lifetime, once very devastatingly and once with resilience. She is going to share what she's learned about fake job posts and ghosted interviews and how to build emotional and financial resilience through it all. So thank you, Jessica, for being here today. We're so grateful. I cannot wait to have this conversation. And as always, everybody feel free to jump in, ask questions. And I'm going to kick it off with letting Jessica, did I miss anything? I mean, there's so much there. I could have gone on for probably 20 minutes if I skipped probably 3/4 of all the things that this woman's got her hands in. Jessica, did I miss anything? I mean, I know I missed a lot, but is there anything?
That was an awesome intro.
Yes, it was. And thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. This is my first time here. I'm sure it won't be the last, but I'm just grateful that you invited me to come on and just share my story and just have a conversation.
Yeah. So Jessica, I know that I've been with you through at least this last job market, seeking your new job, your new career, and this job market. But I did not know that this has happened twice. So take us back to that moment when you were laid off. Did that happen in 2016? Also, was it a laid off situation as well?
Yeah, so the situation, I will try to make a long story short, but I started my sales career really young because I was a teen mom at 15 and really had to just get out in the job market. Dropped out of high school and started working. My first job, fun fact, was actually selling cars, even though I call myself not a car girl. And I did very well. It was an independent dealership in Paducah, Kentucky. Shout out to Paducah if anyone knows where that is. But I did well, didn't like it, but had a long sales career in the home remodeling and furnishing franchise world. Very similar, I learned later, culture like retail. Very, I mean, the hours, the culture, very, very similar. And I grew up in that business. Thankfully, ran across two brilliant mentors that just mentored me, not just in business and leadership and sales, but in life and just learning how to run just a business and life with honesty and integrity. And I was very thankful for that. And they were grooming me to be their succession plan. So we grew a business in Chicago. They moved me to California. And almost at my 20-year mark, we were $3 million into our build out of our state-of-the-art showroom in San Francisco. And this 75-year-old company sold to a private equity and decided to change their business model away from the franchise model. So they shut down 160 showrooms in the US and Canada, including the one that my husband and I were soon to own. So devastated is an understatement. And that was really my life plan. Decided not to go back to school, not to go to college because I was doing so well. We had just built our dream home out in Monterey, California, and we were just living the life, and it all came crashing down in 30 days. We were pretty much done with no plan of what else I was going to do. So that was the first layoff.
Wow. That's I I got a chill. I can't even imagine. Because at that time there you had a family.
Yeah, not just a family. My husband and I both were taking care of a lot of people. We both come from a family of nothing, and there were a lot of people depending on us. And so that was probably the most challenging part. But and I had no concept of a network. That's the other thing. I didn't know what that meant. I come from a very performance driven environment. No one knew or cared who you were unless you outperform the room. And this concept of it's all about who you know was very foreign to me.
I mean, I can't even imagine. So how did you navigate that? Like how do you frame your mindset in that moment to say, okay, these are the next steps that I need to take?
Yeah, again, I was devastated. I mean, we talk about, I just did a podcast episode on grief. And even though we were talking about grief from, losing loved ones, um, a job and a job that was absolutely everything to me. I loved my job, the people I work with, I consider them family, and losing that, I that was grief. And I was brokenhearted and I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. So there was a little small moment of I was drowning. I don't want to say that I was depressed because I don't participate in that, but I was in a dark place. And I just remember we had a condo in Santa Clara that we had to sell to live off of that money. And then finally we had to sell our home. And I tried everything I could to find a job in Silicon Valley, but you're competing with salespeople that have degrees from Stanford, and it just wasn't happening. No one cared that I had all this experience, that I had built award-winning sales teams. It was just no, 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 and more no's. And so when we had to sell our home, again, this was my dream to be able to build a beautiful home. And my husband was just like, listen, we both came from nothing. If we can do this once, we can do it again. Like, you're going to have a bigger home, a better home. And he really just encouraged me. And I'm just thankful for having a partner that I'm always the person encouraging and motivating. And he encouraged and motivated me. And we moved to Atlanta and I found a job. And again, it was well, we can give you an entry-level sales job. You don't have a degree. And I'll never forget it. I was insulted and I said, absolutely not. Did you see my resume? Like, you offered me a job making $56,000 a year. And even in 2017, that was crazy. So I declined the offer. We sold our last property and we moved to the Atlanta area because I had family that lived here. And I think it was about a month later, my husband said, you need to humble yourself and you need to call them back and tell them you will take that job. And you just go in there and you show them who you are and you will get where you're supposed to be. And so that's what I did. But it was definitely challenging going back after all of my experience and success and taking a entry level sales job where I was sitting on the phone banging the phones again.
That's amazing. I love that you had such a supportive partner. I mean, that's so huge to have somebody to say, sometimes, I feel like that's what's so special when you have a really good partner. They can reflect back, right? It's almost like they say partnership is like a mirror. And sometimes you
Yeah.
need that mirror to turn around and say, hey, wait a minute. Let's take another look at this. And I love that your husband was able to do that for you. So 2016 that happened. Then we fast forward 8 years later,
And
and
here we are again. Well, and here's the other thing too. I remember going in and as soon as I started working, there was someone that sat next to me and every day at lunchtime, she would be busy doing something. And my mom used to call me nosy. And I said, no, I was just curious. And to this day, I'm just a question asker. And I asked, I said, I notice every day at lunch, I'm like, what are you doing? And she shared with me that she was getting her degree, that the company paid for you to get a degree. And I'm like, really? And I'm like, well, that's the reason I'm in this seat. Sign me up. And immediately I went to work I had gotten my high school diploma some years later, but went to get my business leadership degree right away. And so I'm so glad that I did that. And I just took all the lessons and I put them into action right away. Even though we had a rental property, that was probably the only great business decision, financial decision that we made. Another thing I'm passionate about is just sharing information about financial literacy because my husband and I did not have that. We both came from nothing, and you give someone that comes from nothing six figures, and what do? You go to the Gucci store and the Louis Vuitton store and you buy Jordans and all the other crazy stuff. And that was the big mistake. But what we did well is we bought real estate and that really helped us. We still ended up having to file bankruptcy and pretty much lost everything. But that financial piece was an area that I said, okay, what did we learn? Because I don't want this to just be failure. I want this to be lessons. What did we learn? We learned that you can't spend everything you got. We learned that if you want to splurge and have nice things, it should be money outside of the money that you earn through a job. We learned that your 9 to 5 should not be your only engine for revenue in your household. All of these things. We learned that even though I thought I didn't need a college degree because I was making so much money, I didn't until I did. And that piece of paper, even if it was just to check a box, I needed to check that box. And so I kept going. And even after I got the first degree, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get another one. And I got a master's and I was gonna keep going as long as they would have kept paying. So all of those things meant something. And I'm just so grateful because when it came, and I did not think that it would come again, but I always felt like just in case. And I also thought, I'm a sales leader. I'm in an organization. I'm performing. I'm building a brand. I'm doing all the things of every corporate America book that I've read and every mentor that I had. Surely this won't happen to me again. And I was wrong. And it happened again. The difference is that I'm not freaking out because we're living off of credit cards. And I'm not freaking out because, how are we going to pay our mortgage? And I'm not freaking out because that paycheck was the only revenue that the Smith household had coming in every month. And all of those things that I can go through this transit. Am I grieving? Absolutely. Did it sting? Absolutely. But I'm working through it very differently than the first time.
that's
Wow.
so great.
What an
That's
amazing amazing comeback. And I've been through some, and probably a lot of people have. I used to think it was about making as much money as I could. And then I realized the level of my debt seemed to rise to the level of my income.
Yeah.
And I was, a month away from losing it all. And of course, it happened a couple of times as well. But then I learned a lot about financial literacy instead of me working for money, how to make money work for me. Great story, Jessica. Thank you. I'm sure there's a lot more to it to come. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so powerful. Financial literacy is something that, I mean, that should be a class you have to pass all
They
through.
don't even teach it. I mean, it's ridiculous. They don't
Yeah.
teach that in school. But yeah, I agree.
So, so true, because that is so important. And you don't really realize how important it is until it's too late, you know.
Yeah, pretty
When
much.
you're in the weeds is when you're like, oh wow, okay, I should have done a whole bunch of things a lot differently. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So now that you're here, and you're much more prepared than you were before, what have been some of the job search, I mean, what have been some of the experiences that you've experienced so far? Like I know that right now this market is crazy. The world is crazy. The
Yeah.
way you apply for a job is so, so different than what I mean, before you made a resume, you did a cover letter, you sent it in, a human read it.
Right.
Right.
Now it's not that way. It's a totally different world. How are you navigating all that? And what are some of the experiences that you've seen?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say is that the senior level roles are scarce and they're highly competitive. I'll say that. And there's two schools of thought. Some people are like, just get a job, right? Just get some money coming in, just get a job. And my thought process is, I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste the person's time who's going to be training me or spending time with me. And I didn't just work for almost 30 years and get a business leadership degree and a master's in psychology and all the things that I've done to take another entry level sales job. So that's just where I'm at today. But job listings, there's been evidence that some of them are not even real. Um, there's this ghosting happening from recruitment to even the final stages of interviews from hiring managers that is just absolutely unacceptable to me. In places where maybe you do have a good network and people are just going to pass you through just as a favor to someone, knowing that they have no intention of hiring you, which again is awful to get someone's hopes up and waste their time. So, you apply for hundreds of jobs and your application goes into a black hole. So all of those things are happening, and I've never experienced them, never heard of them. But again, I've had two jobs in my entire career, or two companies, I should say. So I think that we think jobs provide stability, and I always now I say, but in today's world, they don't always. What provides stability is strategy. And so I try to focus a little more on that. And I did do the thing where I was just like going through all of these applications. And I really stopped doing that. And I started just going back and saying, I spent the last 8 years really building a brand for myself and building a network, and to the point where not just that people know me, but I've made it where they've experienced me. And I think that's where it's a little different, where someone can speak to your gifts and your talents and how they experienced you working on a project or what have you. So really just leaning in, and all the opportunities that I have in my pipeline right now, they are with people who referred me, highly recommended me for a role before I started the interview process. And I that's what I recommend people to do, because I just think this apply, it just gets you to a place where it's just taxing mentally.
Yeah. You know, Jessica, you are really just, I mean, again, I feel very fortunate that I know you, and I feel like you are really, really exceptionally good at building a brand and putting yourself in a position for people to experience you. So unpack that a little bit for everybody to kind of understand, like, what are some of the strategies that you use to actually do that?
Yeah, and listen, I do not want to present it like it is easy because it is far from easy
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
it is one thing, and I was in a great environment, you know, being in a very large company in the automotive industry is definitely a place that makes it a little easier. Being at their headquarters makes it easier too because you're, you know, boots on the ground in the corporate office where all the big executives are. So I want to make sure that that does matter, which I used to encourage people, hey, if there's an opportunity and you can get down to the corporate office and if your situation is such, you should do that because it is very impactful to grow in your career. In 8 years, going from an entry level sales role to a director of sales is not an easy task. And I really don't think I would have been able to do it had I not been boots on the ground. The first thing I remember a mentor told me after the pandemic, he said, when those doors open up, you better be the first person in there. Maybe there's some people that can grow and develop their career and their brand remotely. But if you have the opportunity and you are right there in Atlanta, get your butt in the door. And that was the best advice that I could have gotten because I'm telling you, when I made sure that was the case and I was in the cafe, there was only five other people in there, and all five of them were executives. And they're looking around like, well, who are you? And I'm like, well, hi, I'm Jessica Smith. Let's have coffee. So that's the first thing is that I wasn't shy about it at all because I know exactly who I am and I understand my capabilities and I know how hard I've worked to get here. And no one's going to tell your story like you. You just
Yeah.
have to be brave enough to get in front of the right people. And that's what I did. I just told my story over and over and over and over again. So that's the first thing. So by the time I knocked on the door and they peeked out, they kind of already knew who I was. Maybe they hadn't experienced me yet. And I was very strategic in finding areas. For example, I found there was a kind of like a startup opportunity. And I knew that they hadn't hired a sales leader yet. And I said, hey, I want to take on a stretch assignment. I know you don't have any sales leaders, and I know you got to sell stuff. So I'd love to have the opportunity to come along and help you out. And this was outside of my org. And of course, I asked the permission of my leader. And everything's about exposure, right? And so I went to my leader and said, hey, I think we can get some great exposure for your org because I think I can impact this other org. And I want to raise my hand and take on a stretch assignment. And he was like, okay, yeah, go for it. Because they want to know what's in it for them. And the best, when I do good, it's going to make him look good. So I just showing up and every opportunity that I knew that I can impact somewhere where they needed someone like me, I would just go and volunteer my time. And it was extra work. And sometimes it was work on the weekends, and sometimes it was work after hours. But I showed up and I made sure that I put in the work and I was impactful. And then I couldn't stop there. Now I had to go and tell the story what I did so that other people knew what I was doing because oftentimes stories would be told about the success, but your name won't be in them. And I learned that the hard way too, because I would hear stories about, did you hear about that $10 million deal, such and such and that? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And my name wasn't in the story, and the lead and the whole process started with me. And so you gotta put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to ask. You gotta show up. And that's the other thing too. Don't ask and then show up and drop the ball. That's a no-no. You got to make sure that if you're given the opportunity that you crush it. And when you do, then you got to go and tell that story. And then it got to a point where people would come to me and say, hey, I heard you did this. Could you help with this project? Sure. And that's kind of how I ended up with five different roles in the 8 years that I was with the organization.
That's so inspirational. Like, I don't know about anybody else, but is anybody else not very good at Blowing their own horn, tooting their own horn.
And guess what? It's harder for women, Stephanie. It's harder for women. And again, I think the mentorship, that's the other thing I do. I'm so big on mentorship. I find good mentors. I ask for them to really pour into me. And I had a mentor tell me, it ain't bragging if it's true. So
Oh,
Right.
I took that with me, and everywhere I go, some people, hey, I've been in interviews where I got feedback from someone that they didn't know that knew me. And the feedback was, I don't know, I found her to be arrogant. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to be for everyone. I know that. I'm definitely not a one size fits all. But I am going to tell my own story. And if I did something amazing, I'm going to
Right on. Yeah.
relate it
Shout
to
it from the
you.
rooftops.
that's so important. Jess had some good questions she put in the chat. She said, how do you manage to stay so positive through everything? And what daily habits or mindset practices help you keep that outlook so strong?
Yeah, you kind of answered part of it, which is I always tell people, so I'm very structured, and this is going to go back into my early years. You know, when you're a teen mom and you're 17 and you're out in the world and you're lost, and I had these mentors, and that's what they taught me. The first book they had me read was The Magic of Thinking Big, and it really helped me start understanding the right mindset and the right habits to get in. No one would ever know that I am like ADHD, like so. And the reason you wouldn't know it is because I have formed habits around it where um, you just would know it because everything is very structured. So going back to your question, Jess, is another thing is that I'm a strong woman of faith, and that's huge. That's huge for me because without that, I don't know where I would be. So I am big into prayer, into meditation, into just quiet time, into reading, exercise, and all of these things are just small habits every single day. I have a heart to serve, and I believe that if you spend more time serving other people, that you don't have to worry about where yours is going to come from. And that's been a big thing too, is that I've been working with a lot of people that are in the same situation I'm in, and I'm so busy trying to help them that sometimes I forget that I'm in that situation. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm laid off myself. So yeah, that's what I would say is just have a heart to serve and really get into habits and find whatever that thing is for you, whatever it is. If it's prayer, if it's meditation, if it's Zumba, whatever it is, but it's got to be something. And trust me, I still have days. I mean, I just had one because I went through this long since June process for a job that I really wanted. And I finally got the word that I didn't get it. And I was just like so defeated. And I had another mentor that said, listen, that's okay. Be upset, cry, whatever it is you're going to do, but you better do it. And you have until the next day to be done with that thing. Nothing
Hmm.
more. It's not about it's about sitting in it too long. And so I have these things, these habits programmed in my mind. And what I do is I just stick to them and I'm really disciplined that way.
I love that. That's so powerful. I don't know where it was that I saw that somewhere. I feel like it was in some movie where they talked about how like don't sit in it too long. And it's almost like because when you're in it, it's so easy to sit in it because then you keep repeating your story to people, right? You keep sharing with other people. Oh, how was your interview? Oh, da da da. Now you're sharing it with that person. Now you're sharing, and that brings up those emotions and that
Yes.
defeat, all of it. You're just reliving it. So I loved your strategy of like getting outside of that and just doing something else, something you enjoy, and making sure, like, even though you're not working or you're looking for a job or whatever the circumstances, just bringing in other things that help you yourself, to help you with your self-worth, with your identity. If you worked out when you had a job, keep working out. If you
Yes.
like to cook when you had a job, keep cooking. I love that. I love that mentality.
And Stephanie, I like what you said about when someone asks you about it, because that's another thing too that can really mess us up. And people are asking because they care, and I love that, right? And if you keep reliving the pain, it's not helpful. So I encourage people that when people ask you about something, don't relive the pain in a negative way. Spin it in a positive way so that when you're telling the story, and this last one, it was so tough. The president, when she was talking to me, I thought she was gonna cry. And I said to her, stop for a moment. I said, breathe. I'm the one that didn't get the job. What's wrong
Yeah.
with you? And she just cracked up laughing. And I said, she goes, this was just such a hard decision. And I went with an internal, which by the way is a thing right now too. She went with an internal that was really due for a promotion. And I feel really bad. And I said, listen, here's the thing. And I'm not here to preach. I said, but I do want you to know that the decision wasn't yours. The decision was the God's. You didn't make the decision. I said, because I asked God to open doors and close doors, and He closed this one. You didn't close it. And she was like, oh my God, thank you so much for saying that. So when you're telling people the story, I tell people that story instead of saying, I didn't get the job, these people did blah, blah, blah. And I tell that story. And so it's always every, what's the saying? Like rejection is protection. Figure out what the lesson is, what was the protection. In sales, we say every no, you're closer to the yes, and tell that story when someone asks you about it. And I think that's helpful too.
Wow.
I have a question, actually. Um,
No, not you, Sandy. Not you, Sandy.
hey, look, that's what Stacey Abrams said, not
I
you.
know that's why that was an inside joke, Sandy.
So, and just like I did then, I'm going to ask my question. So, is it important? Because I totally wholeheartedly agree with the idea of when we tell a story, we feel all the feelings again. So I have to find different ways to tell it.
Yeah.
But also, is it important for you to have a couple of safe people to talk about those feelings with, right? Like
Oh,
to
yeah.
process the stuff.
Yeah. And my husband's usually the first one because he's right here, right? And in those moments is usually when if I'm just so angry because like this is the one that I just really, really wanted or I knew I had. And then this is he really again he speaks life back into me. And then by the time I have that with the second or the third, listen, I went for a role in an organization seven times in a row. And I'm telling you, you would think by the seventh time it wouldn't sting as much. It actually was worse because every time I thought my chances were higher and higher and higher. And it wasn't the case. So again, I'm not going to say it ever gets easy, but I will say that how you handle it really determines how fast you can get up and keep moving.
Yeah, I love that question, Sandy, because it really is about who you're sharing it with, right? Like if you're sharing it with somebody who feeds into the negative, right? Or maybe even if you're being negative, but they're co-signing it, right? So you're still going back through that negative emotion, then you want to go to somebody who can uplift you, right? Somebody who can say, like you said, Jessica, like your husband, like somebody who can say, okay, let's look at the bright side, or somebody who can say, well, that wasn't your job. That wasn't for you. Like that interview process, you needed to go through it because you needed to learn something. You needed to
Absolutely.
experience that. You needed to network. Now you know these people, they know you, but that wasn't your role.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say with all of this that's been going on with you trying to, stay positive, interview for all these jobs, get so far along? It's almost easier when you don't get all that way, right? All that far along, right? But then you get all that way and then you have to reset and come back. What would you say like the biggest takeaway is? Because I know you're making a lot of networking, genuine relationship connections, and you're meeting a lot of people. And yes, you just haven't found that role yet, but you know that it's coming. So what do you do daily to just make sure, like, do you continue to interview? Do you do things in a different way? Do you step back for a minute? Like what do you do every single day to keep the momentum going?
Yeah, I do a lot of journaling too. And so that is one of those areas that help me. And one of the things that I do is I journal through and this is my, psychology brain. um, I journal through the interview process. And part of the reason why I'm doing this too is because I think I'm learning something to be able to help coach other people through it. And it's funny, there were some things that happened in this last interview process that I told my husband at some point. I'm like, yeah, I'm seeing some signs of, I know I keep moving on, but I see some signs that they're seeing me as a risk. And I won't go down the rabbit hole of, but reality is when you're a woman and when you're a woman of color and you're the only one in an interview process, you are risky. And it is not uh, something that person is bad or what, it's the way the human brain works. If someone is from one community and they look at you, you are risky. And so I wrote down some words that were used in
Mhm.
some of the feedback and some of the interviews. And I was telling my husband, he's like, oh my gosh, you're totally overthinking these. And at the end of whenever I'm told I didn't get the job, those keywords that I've journaled always come up to show their head that they meant something when I thought they meant something. And so I go back and I say, okay, what have I learned through this? Could I have done something differently? Can I have, and in some cases there's nothing, because more times than not, I here's the feedback I get. I always ask for feedback, and the feedback I often get is, you interviewed so well. Like you are, because I'm thinking, well, yeah, I'm a professional at this point. I've done 470 million of them over the last 5 years. But it's that, well, it was just this or it was just that. So I say all that to say is that I do a lot of journaling because I want to be able to learn something. And I want to be able to show up differently. And sometimes will it make a difference? I don't know. I just know that I want to know that it wasn't all for nothing. So I look back on my journaling. I also allow myself to feel however I feel, and I journal about that as well. Going back to the financial piece of it, I also know that, yes, sometimes I take a step back and take a break. So, for example, I have two strong possibilities, and I just got one no in the last 7 days. And I'm taking a break, which is why I was available to do this. And I love that because when I leave myself open with nothing on my calendar, I leave it open saying to the universe, hey, bring me something to do that I can serve someone else and get outside of myself in this that I'm doing.
And the
I know,
universe brings it.
yep. So that's kind of some of the things that I do. And then again, I went to the gym this morning. I try to make sure that I'm praying, meditate, all of those things, but it has to be something that I do every day. And
Mhm.
again, I want to be able to allow myself to step away and take a break.
I love that you get feedback. How do you do that? Do you go back to the last
Mhm.
person who interviewed you? Do you go back to the recruiter? Do you do a combination of both?
Yeah, it depends on it depends on the situation, how close I am to the job, how, I know the people, but there is never a time, just like I would never interview and not send a thank you note, or never interview and not send a business plan. I would never not ask for feedback. And again, even though most of the time it's nothing, and it's funny because in this last one, her comment was, there was nothing negative. And I said, well, hold on a minute. I said, I didn't say negative. And I said, it doesn't have to be negative. My question is that, was there any feedback, or can you share the feedback? Because I think it was like 6 interviews with like all these different people. I said, is there any feedback you could share with me. And I said, and it's important to me because I want to be able to always keep learning and keep bettering, myself. And I want to share this information with other people that I mentor and coach. But it's funny that she said there was nothing negative, and I was like, oh, I didn't say that it had to be negative. I don't necessarily take feedback is not always negative, but there was nothing there. But I always ask.
That's really good. That's really important, right? Because people do a lot of times associate feedback with something negative, right? And you're not really asking, was there only something bad that could have happened? It could be something, out of your control, even like when they hired internally, like that's not even in your control. Or it could just be that, oh, maybe you're overqualified, or, you know, maybe we wanted whatever. It could be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be negative. So that's a really good point, though. But
Yeah,
that's
I
something.
got feedback once that they wanted to see my business plan before the panel, and I had never heard that before, and I think that's just a preference. So now what I do is I put together a business plan before the panel, and then based on what I learned during the panel, I update it and I send a revised copy. So that's something that I learned, and it really is a preference of whoever the panel is.
So this is something they asked for prior to, or do you just automatically have this business plan ready to go?
Yeah, I have a foundation of a business plan, and then and here's the thing. At the end of the day, when you see who got the job, you're like, you know what, that was BS, but it doesn't matter, BS or not. My goal is to check all the boxes and make it very difficult for them to tell me no. Like you can come up and it's obvious when they're just like reaching for excuses, right? Because I thought that one was interesting, but I still do things differently based on that feedback because you never know if it will, be something that helps me out in the future.
I love that you also do your podcast. I'm sure you probably also talk about a lot of this kind of stuff on your podcast. What type of stuff do you talk about on your podcast?
So my podcast called Lead Like a Girl started off, and I'm not even a podcast listener. I met a guy who just in conversation, he was one of the youth leaders at our church, and he said, "Did anybody ever tell you you would be really good at a podcast?" And I started laughing. I'm like, "Oh my God!" First of all, I'm so busy. I don't have time for that. If I was going to do something, I'd write my book. And he goes, "Well, that's what you should do on the podcast." And I'm like, what do you mean? Write a book on the podcast? He goes, no, just get on the podcast and tell your story. So that conversation within 7 days went to him producing a podcast where I'm just telling my life story. And I do no edits, no records. And I would just, some of the stories I hadn't told since they actually happened. And it was just very therapeutic. Uh, my mentors and my therapist would she's like, you should have done this a long time ago. And so it was great. And I did that in the first season, and I'm like, I don't know where this thing is going. And then two other women that kind of grew up in the business that I grew up in as sales leaders, they're like, we'd love to get on and just talk and have conversations about just all the stuff. So, what we say is we're empowering everyday women through our storytelling, and we literally talk about everything. And sometimes we have guests. And one of the things that I asked the producer, I said, give me what's the secret sauce to a podcast? And he said, consistency. He said, most people are great podcasters, but they are not consistent. They can't keep it up.
That's right.
Said, I'll tell you what, I will never miss an episode. Every week, I'll never, and he laughed at me and he said, good luck with that. And it's been 2 years. And if you listen to some of them, you'll see some of them I'm sick. Two times I had COVID, I had no voice. The girls thought that I was joking when I told them, I'm committed to never missing an episode and you will not mess up my winning streak. And so it was the first day, it was like a holiday or something. And I called them up. I'm like, hey, where the heck are you guys? And they're like, it's Labor Day. And I was like, did we talk about we were going to record another day outside of Monday? I'm like, put your beers down and get on. You are not messing up my winning streak. And they were like calling each other like, she's crazy. And we got on and re-recorded, and now they know that if they can't make a Monday, then you call me and we'll get it on the schedule for Saturday. We do not miss an episode. So I am running strong on over 2 years now with not one missed episode yet.
Nice. And
Right on.
when is your podcast?
So we record every Monday night, but we release the episodes every Wednesday. So, and it's on wherever you listen to podcasts. The other thing is that we moved to YouTube. So not only do they have to show up, but they have to be on camera too. So
Ah,
they're all video podcasts. So one day I'll do something with all the content, but at least I know that it's there and it's already made.
very nice. Ah, you got a new listener, Sean said. Awesome.
Thank you. And believe I didn't realize this. We actually do have a lot of men listeners. I've gotten some great feedback about how we've really helped one of our listeners with handling his wife. She's the sales
Oh,
leader. And so I've learned a lot that we have a lot of male listeners, and that's great because our mission, what we need to do with women in the workforce, we can't do it without men at the end of the day. So thank you.
very true.
Right on.
I love that. Who came up with the name? I love it. Lead like a girl.
You said who came up with the name?
Yeah.
So funny story there. So at the company I was with, because, again, I raised my hand for everything. They came to me and said, hey, we usually have Women's History Month has a theme, and all of the organizations are kind of siloed with their theme. We want to do a theme for the entire company, and we want you to be a part of it. And I'm like, okay, sure. So we get in this room with a bunch of people and we're talking, and I said, during the pandemic, I thought about, I was just so upset with the number of women leaders that were leaving the workforce because they just couldn't do it all. And it made me so angry. I was calling people up and I'm like, no, you can't do it. And what I realized after talking to so many women is that the reason they couldn't do it, and you're talking to someone who was homeschooling 3 children at the time, one in elementary, one in middle, and one in high school, and had a team of my own to still do. So I understood how hard it was. But I think women were leaving because they kept comparing themselves to their male counterparts in terms of leadership. And they did not feel okay with saying, I can't make this meeting today. I have to cancel because, I got to go to the school, or my kids work, whatever it is. And so that's when I got the vision. And then I grew up with a brother that tormented me. And I remember we used to play football, basketball, all the things. And he used to get really mad and say, you throw like a girl. And I wouldn't say it, but I would think like, you idiot, I am a girl. What do you mean I throw like a girl? And so all of these things went through my head. And during the pandemic, I came up with that brand, Lead Like a Girl. You can still lead, you can still do it, and you don't have to do it. Lead like a girl. And so I shared this in that meeting, and they just loved it. And next thing I know, we had a creative team. We had all these teams helping me build this brand. And then the next year, I get all these calls and emails that people wanted this Lead Like a Girl swag. Where's my hat? Where's my this and that? And I'm like, so I went back and they're like, yeah, that was last year's. We usually don't redo it. So my son, I have a brilliant son, and he's like, Mom, you created a whole brand. They helped you do, like, take your brand, trademark it, and do something with it. And I was like, well, what am I? He's like, just do it. Who knows where. So
That's right.
I
That's right.
trademarked it. I did. I took it and kind of just set it on the shelf. And then when this whole podcast came and they were like, well, what do you want to call it? And I was like, I know what, I got a name. I got a brand. So that's where Lead Like a Girl came from.
Love it. Love it. And I didn't know there was swag too. That's great.
Yep. Lead Like a Girl lab.com is our website. So yeah, we got the trucker hats and the sweatshirts, the wine glasses, all of it.
Wow. That's amazing. I want to open it up. Does anybody want to ask any questions of this amazing woman? Anybody else in the job market or having trouble in the job market, or know anybody in the job market having trouble in the job market? out there. It's really rough. Oh, thank you, Sandy. Sandy is putting all your links in the chat.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sandy.
Well, I'll make a comment, a couple of comments. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing just a little bit. And I made some notes of some of the things you shared that are applicable to my life and for people that want to achieve whatever success is, not just monetarily. Okay. If the dream is big enough, the facts don't count. So I wrote down acceptance, mentors, journaling, reading, attitude, dreams, getting outside your comfort zone and stretching, tremendous resilience, great habits, and faith. That's what makes a leader. And I really believe it's better to give than to receive. And I ascribe to the Zig Ziglar philosophy. If you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And I seem to think, I don't know if it's true or not, but I seem to think that the things that I have in my life, or what I think people have, is in direct proportion to what they give.
Yes.
Oh, Russell, yes, that's so true. And so you gave me chills. I love that.
And it's a tremendous story. You can get muddled down in all the crap and listen to people, but you're one of those people because of your education, woman of color, a woman, all those things that happen where people say, oh, no, you can't do that. I tried that. That won't work. And they got interrupted by somebody who just did. And that is Jessica Smith. And the universe is going to open up and provide you exactly what you need, or something way outside, a quantum leap in whatever it is that's coming. But I'm telling you, it's coming.
Thank you. I received that. Thank you. I appreciate those words.
Yeah, I mean, I second that. I think what is coming is probably bigger than you even imagine. And I think it's probably going to take you in a direction that you're not even looking.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be open to receive it because you did not settle for
That's right.
just to grab it, just to get income, just to support yourself. You're waiting for that magical moment, and it's coming. That's for
I
sure.
think that sometimes, and some people in here have heard me say this, but people can tend to get bogged down, and the greatest predictor of future behavior is previous behavior. And we all know the definition of insanity, right? And so people wonder why I'm just not, this isn't happening, isn't getting hit. Well, there's really only a few things that are determining factors of where you want to go, because you are really a subtotal of everything you've ever seen, heard, read, or done. And if you want a different tomorrow and you think it's going to happen 30 days from now just because you think it is, it's not. You actually have to input new information to get a new output. If not, unfortunately, you're going to be left to all you know and experienced and thought and done, and it's going to be the same thing. And people wonder, I'm the same place I was a year ago. Well, why don't you get outside your comfort zone and be vulnerable enough to get hurt, if that's what it is that's going to happen, right?
Absolutely.
True. I mean, that's what you just said, Russell, is applicable even if you're employed, right?
It's yes, it's life.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Sometimes you're just in a place that you have no business staying in, but fear is keeping you there, right? So great session. Jessica, great story. Amazing. I don't know how you'd have this was fun because I learned more about you. I didn't know you were doing all this stuff. How did you even have time to work?
It's amazing. Busy people tend to find the time. It's the people that aren't busy that just they don't have any time. They're not busy and they don't have any time, right?
I'm gonna there's 4 minutes left in the session, so I'm gonna take 30 of those seconds, if that's okay.
Of course.
Right? From the moment I met Jessica, she inspired me, right? Like right away. And we met years ago, and where we both have short blonde hair. And she has continued to inspire me, right? Like there was some stuff she left out of her story things that I didn't know, like things that I do know, like maybe I missed it. Did you mention that you also got your master's degree too while you were at, you got your bachelor's, your master's, then you did the what's it called, the Toastmaster.
Cheers.
I mean, like one thing after another. Jessica, you never stop.
Yeah.
Right? And it is something that really inspires me, because sometimes there are days where I just want to pull the covers over my head.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm done. And so you keep me going, so thank you.
She's an Energizer bunny.
I've been called that.
It really is true. It's very true. Your children are very lucky to have such an inspirational, aspirational mama.
And that
Thank you.
networking thing that you mentioned, I think is one of the most important things, right? Like, because nobody gave me the roadmap.
Yeah.
And if I would ever, which I probably will never, like go, like some of the things that you talk about in your interview process, I'm like, oh my God, I would fail so miserably if some big company wanted to interview me for something, because so I'd be calling you, right? Because
Yeah.
I know somebody. So that kind of stuff is really important.
Yeah, it really is. It's true. I mean, especially speaking, as a woman of color, that a lot of us don't have C-suite parents, siblings, aunts, uncles. Like, we don't have the roadmap. We don't have the blueprint. So we don't know what you're supposed to do and say. We don't know about the genuine connections that you're supposed to make, and the networking and the relationships, and building a business plan for an interview, and asking for feedback all the time. And so the fact that you take the opportunity to build these platforms and share your voice and your experience and your knowledge is huge. And I thank you so much for coming today and spending time with us and educating us on how to persevere through all of this crazy madness that's going on right now in this job market. I know a lot of people, I mean, Jessica, we were just talking about this. A lot of people, especially a lot of people of color, are in the situation where they're looking for their next role. And so this is right on time, and this is what everybody needed to hear. So thank you so much. And thank you everybody for coming. Thank you, Jessica, again for sharing with us. It was great to see you all. And I hope to see you all next week.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much,
Thank
everybody.
you so
All right,
much.
thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.